So even though the FCC already voted to repeal Title II net neutrality protections, the fight to save net neutrality is far from over actually, because immediately after the FCC made this vote, New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman announced that he would be suing the FCC.
Hi, I'm New York State Attorney General Eric Schneiderman. As we speak, the FCC has just voted to gut net neutrality. Today's vote is an early Christmas gift to big telecom companies. New Yorkers deserve a free and open internet, and that's why my office will sue to stop the FCC's illegal rollback of net neutrality. We will be filing a claim to preserve protections for New Yorkers and all Americans, and will be working aggressively to stop the FCC's leadership from doing any further damage to the internet and our economy.
Now, since Eric Schneiderman made this announcement, 16 other states have already signed onto his lawsuit, including California, Oregon, Vermont, Washington, Delaware, Hawaii, Iowa, Illinois, Massachusetts, Kentucky, Maine, Maryland, North Carolina, Mississippi, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. And that's just one of multiple ways that we're fighting the FCC here, because you can also put pressure on Congress to overturn the FCC's decision, since there is a law known as the Congressional Review Act, which allows Congress to invalidate regulatory changes made by government agencies. And as Evan Greer explains in an op-ed for HuffPost, the CRA lets elected officials in Congress overrule actions taken by federal agencies like the FCC, and it's different from a normal bill because it only requires a simple majority in the Senate and House to pass. Now, the only problem with the Congressional Review Act is that Congress only has 60 days to act. So if they're going to get this done, if we're going to use the CRA to save net neutrality, then we've got to act quickly, and we've got to put a lot of pressure on our elected officials. However, the good news is that the Senate is already planning to vote on this. So according to John Brodkin of Ars Technica, U.S. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said he will force a vote on a bill that would reinstate the Federal Communications Commission's net neutrality rules. Legislation to reverse the repeal doesn't need the support of the majority leader, Schumer said during a press conference Friday, according to The Hill. We can bring it to the floor and force a vote. So there will be a vote to repeal the rule that the FCC passed. Now, realistically speaking, even if the Senate is able to muster up enough votes to pass this, well, the chances of it passing in the House are slim to none. So I think that the best way we can possibly save net neutrality is pursuing this through the courts. However, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't at least try to save net neutrality. So we should still be calling our senators, we should still call our representatives and let them know that we want them to use the Congressional Review Act to nullify what the FCC just did. However, in the process of trying to save net neutrality and pursuing a congressional solution, we do have to be cognizant that there are fake friends out there that are pretending to support net neutrality when actually what they're proposing is pretty harmful.
Just as promised, we have a bill, the Open Internet Preservation Act. We can do this now that Chairman Pai has successfully done his job of getting the net neutrality rules off the books. And we are back to Title I for an internet service. And yes, to preserve a free and open internet. No blocking, no throttling, disclose all of the rules. And this is, we're doing it right now. We're getting ready to drop this bill. It is my honor to sign this bill.
Now, as Fight for the Future explains, what Marsha Blackburn is proposing here is a net neutrality in name only bill, and this bill doesn't do what she wants us to think it will do. So by getting us to call Congress and ask them to sign this bill, we'll be doing her dirty work for her. And we have a reason to not trust Marsha Blackburn because she did take $600,000 from the telecom industry. She also voted against our online privacy earlier this year, and brazenly so. So if you are going to call Congress, make sure that you specifically tell them that you want them to utilize the powers granted to them in the Congressional Review Act to nullify this law. You don't support Marsha Blackburn's phony bill. You support them stopping the FCC through the Congressional Review Act. It's very important, I think, to make that distinction. Now, there are other ways to save net neutrality permanently, and that means that as citizens, it's our responsibility to show up to city council meetings across the country and push for public broadband. It's one way to ensure that we always have net neutrality, because if we're not relying on these large multi-billion-dollar companies like Comcast and Verizon and AT&T, and we have our own public option, then that means we don't have to worry about it anymore, because our own municipality-run internet, they're not going to do what Comcast and Verizon wants to do because it's owned by the citizens. And it's also cheaper. It forces other internet service providers in your area to compete. So here's the thing that I want you all to take away. Even though the situation seems grim, and it is, we do have to realize that the fight is far from over. And to the chagrin of Ajit Pai, we're never going to back down. We will continue this fight, and we will make sure that we undo the damage that this vote caused.
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Report.